Hey, Ding Dongs, I'm Jamie.
I'm Richard.
And this is Explain It to Jamie, the political comedy podcast in which I, Jamie, a politically innocent but curious fella from Toronto, Canada, has the complicated political happenings of the world explained to me by my politically savvy friend, Richard Lamb. Rick, how's it going?
It is going great, Jamie. It's winter in Canada. Everyone is buried under a howling, shrieking mountain of snow. The winds whip like knives. Nobody is happy. Everyone is sad. Welcome to half of the year in the country we live in.
Oh, Canada. Yeah, man. Is the weather fucked up out in BC as well?
Yes, it's unbelievable. It's like a once-in-a-decade snowstorm right now in Vancouver. It snowed for the last 3 consecutive days. There's like almost a foot of snow on the ground, which doesn't sound like very much if you're from a place that snows a lot. But in Vancouver,
Right.
That is like a crazy amount of snow. Many schools are canceled. People are staying home. It's just a nightmare here.
Man, it's everywhere because Alberta is like minus 50 right now, and I'm in Toronto, where it is currently pouring rain. But we had a blizzard this morning, so now the 4 or 5 inches of snow that we've got is crusting over with ice, which
And
I
that's
think
the most
makes the
dangerous.
TTC work better.
The TTC is actually powered by like human misery. So the more miserable people are, the better it works. When things are really happy, the TTC like grinds to a halt because it needs to, fuel itself up more on tears and grumbling.
That's right. Misery and TTC, like peak operation, work in opposite parabola to each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
The further they both get from zero, the better and worse they operate.
There's only 3 things
you-
inevitable in the world: death, taxes, and the short turn.
You know who I bet would have a lot of opinions about the weather outside, Rick?
Who's that?
Bernie Sanders.
Oh, we're talking about Bernie today.
Man, can you believe that they just had like such a regular chat, like 2 normal Joes, and he weaved it in with no issue at all. Do they write this? Do we write this, Richard?
It's astonishing. It's like watching a trapeze artist of The Voice.
Today I want to talk about Bernie Sanders, or as you call him, your God.
Yeah, that's right. He's my dad. He's my dad, and I'm his son. No, I am a left-leaning gentleman, as you may be aware, Jamie. And I'm a fan of Bernie only to the extent that Bernie he's essentially like the most visible left politician in North America right now. And he has done incredible things for furthering the cause of leftist politics. Do I love him? I don't actually care about him really as a person that much. I mean, I don't wish ill on him, but it's not him that I like. It's that he's like a staunch advocate for things I like. And that key little fact is something that still eludes many, many people in our broken world politics that we have right now, where everything is based around identity and it's all just a weird reality show. He really stands, I think, staunchly in opposition to that, and people refuse to accept it. It's a cause of a lot of misunderstandings and heartache in the world.
Yeah, and all the while, he was a head writer and producer for Seinfeld.
I know, unbelievable, right? And Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yeah, he's incredible.
He's a tour de force.
I know. The guy, he gets himself into all those awkward jams, but he always kind of gets out of them. Speaking of theme songs, Jamie, why don't we pivot from your incredible goosebump-raising rendition of the Curb Your Enthusiasm theme song and head into ours?
Yeah, baby, let's put these things side by side.
Oh, God, this is going to be nightmarish.
Boing. Hey, wow, they sound pretty good next to each other. Hey?
Yeah, I agree. That was some Stravinsky shit right there. That was
I'm gonna call DJ Khaled.
You're just like girl talk.
Girl clock.
Girl talk. Remember Girl Talk?
Oh yeah.
He was that DJ who everyone was obsessed with in the mid 2000s. Yeah, that's right. And everyone was like, oh my God, mashups of hip hop and pop and rock songs. What? In 2007 or whatever.
Yeah, man. I think I still got Girl Talk on my iTunes. Shout out to Girl Talk.
Yeah.
If you ever want to come on the podcast, let us know.
Yeah, Girl Talk. If you ever want to come and remix our theme song with like another popular theme song, you just come right on, man.
Yeah. Hashtag where is Girl Talk, everybody.
Okay, so Jamie, what do you know about Bernie Sanders?
I mean, kind of nothing. No, that's not true. He was a big deal. He's a Democrat in the Democratic Party. He ran sort of as an independent in the Democratic Party. Sort of he kind of hijacked it a little bit. I know he's like really left leaning, socialist. Is the word that people love to throw around with him. I don't know. I can't speak for him, but yeah, he seems like a good guy. He's sort of the first politician that a lot of people my age, it seems, were like, hey, yeah, I have been thinking that might be a good idea. Why haven't I've always assumed that like this is just purely impossible, but he's saying it's not. Is that a clear explanation of a person? Just like me just opening my brain up and letting all the information and words fall out of my mouth like a toilet bowl? That's what this show is.
Well,
right?
Jamie, if this was your master's thesis, maybe you'd be in trouble. But I actually really like that you just did that, because this is exactly what the mandate of the show is. Like, you just by existing in the world have absorbed all of these weird free-floating terms and vocabulary to describe Bernie Sanders, and only some of them are accurate. Some of them are wrong. Some of them are very editorial and probably not true. Or they're a matter of very specific people's opinion. But it's interesting, isn't it, what you absorb, and what's opinion and what's fact. That's kind of what we're here to parse through and slice through the undergrowth of mystery to reveal the cold, hard, lost temple of truth, so to speak. You with me on that metaphor? You're very silent right now.
I'm not gonna lie. I stopped following a while ago because the echo of the word hero kept echoing in my brain, and I thought, maybe I am
the hero.
Maybe I am
the hero Gotham needs. Okay, so we're 7.5 minutes into this podcast, and we haven't really talked about Bernie Sanders yet. So let's jump on in.
Perfect. Our killing time mandate is in full swing.
So Bernie Sanders is a currently sitting independent senator in the United States Senate. Right. You kind of correctly identified, wait, is he an independent? Is he a Democrat? What's the deal with that? The answer is he's always been an independent. He's never been a part of the Democratic Party, but when he was in Congress for a number of years, and now he's in the Senate. He's been in the Senate for 2 terms, so like almost close to 12 years now. He sits with the Democrats. He caucuses with the Democrats. So he's an independent. He's not beholden to the Democrats. He could do his own thing, but he kind of works with them. He adds his weight to the Democratic team on certain things, but he splits from the Democrats on many things as well. And that independence has let him kind of spend his whole career as a real leftist, as a person who was really advocating for left-wing policies, and sometimes just common sense policies as well, when common sense was not the Democratic consensus in America. Many of the dumbest and most absurd things that America has gotten itself into over the last 15 years that happened while Bernie was either in Congress or in Senate, Bernie was able to just, stand up against, break ranks with the Democrats, call it out for what it was, because he wasn't really under the same kind of obligations that a sitting Democrat was to get resources from the Democratic Party when campaign time came around. So to literally toe the party line, he doesn't have to do that.
Right. Now, this seems to me, because you and I, we wander through these woods and find new pastures on which to graze, but we find ourselves circling the same trees every now and then. And I think I think this is like a good example of like the value of having more than 2 parties. You know what I mean?
Oh, God,
it's like
yes.
When you have a third person, even just a third single individual, to step out and say, hey, you're both fucked. What if the truth is over here? Like that, it gives dimension to the way we govern,
Oh, absolutely. And if there were 4 or 5 Bernie Sanderses in the Senate, like American politics would be completely changed. Like everything would be different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think, so to be honest, everything would be significantly better. Now, I think part of the reason that Bernie is special and part of the reason that he should be taken very seriously as a force and a leader in American politics is that there really aren't very many Bernies, because American politics is an incredibly corrupting place. I don't know if you saw, there was a kind of viral video this week of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez speaking kind of on a committee questioning about like what's legal in terms of campaign financing in America. She was doing this to prove the point that like very many things are legal. Yeah, so you saw that video.
No, I didn't see it. No, I didn't watch that, Richard. That I have a show that I'm responsible for. I know I wanted to watch it so badly.
See, to me, that video to me was like the Super Bowl. So, I mean, I really you really had me going there. I really thought you had seen it.
No, I love you to death, Richard, but no, I didn't watch it. I've been watching Flowers on Netflix.
Okay, well, all the cool kids were watching this video of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez where she basically says like, okay, look, if I'm an immoral person and I want to get elected, like it is legal for me to take a shitload of money from huge pharmaceutical companies or oil companies. And then once I get elected and I've taken I can have my whole campaign financed millions and millions of dollars by these companies. Is there any law that prevents me from making laws that completely favor those companies over other companies? No, there's not. Right? That was basically what she identifies. So in American politics, it's harder not to take dirty money and be on somebody's dime than it is to take it. You know, friend of the show, Anthony McMahon, was working just on a Toronto City Council election, and he said that he was working for a candidate who does not take money from developers, like a long-standing city councilor in Toronto who doesn't take money from developers who are kind of like, you know, the evil big money in Toronto right now.
Right.
And he said that every day during their campaign, a bunch of people from developers would walk in with a check for the absolute maximum campaign contribution and just try to give it to them. And they had to literally actively turn them away every day. Like some people will be throwing money at you. You have to work to refuse it. So to actually spend your whole political, and that's just Toronto City Council, like the United States fucking Senate, right? To spend your whole career not getting on the hook to those kinds of interests, those big businesses that really don't want things to be more equal. At the end of the day, I think that's really what it's about. That takes a special kind of person.
Here's a question, because this is where I always get a bit like, you know, we like Obama fine, right?
Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, I got ish with Obama, but we could definitely talk about that another time.
But he just moved into this really, really expensive house in Washington that's like next door neighbors to Jeff Bezos, you know? And, you know, the president of the United States only gets paid like $400,000 a year or something like that. And I understand Obama was like, you know, he's a lawyer and he's a lifetime politician. I'm sure he's made good investments and stuff, but like he's living next door to Jeff Bezos. And I can't help, you know, this sort of always, not always, because, you know, in Bush's case, I guess they come from money, but like, you know, is this where the money comes from? You know, because it's certainly more than, you know, $500,000 a year isn't nothing to sneeze at, but like you're living next door to Jeff Bezos. I would imagine that you are making Jeff Bezos money, you know what I mean? Jeff Bezos
significantly. It's significantly darker than that, actually, Jamie, and it's a lot more obvious than you would think. It's pretty sad, and I mean, it's one of the reasons why we all liked Obama on some level. I think because he made us feel comfortable. Like Obama's presence as the president of the United States made us feel that we're on the right track, and even if things seem dark or there's like a blip where things seem, you know, hateful and regressive and right-wing and reactionary, that at least we're making progress. We have this man here. He was soothing. He seemed like a good leader. But actually, the stuff he did wasn't really that progressive with the time that he had available to him. And his term's over now. Like, his legacy as a president is not very progressive. And the ultimate, like what I'm talking about is, this is kind of sad and kind of dark, is that one of the first things he did in office was the Wall Street bailout, right? Where he gave billions of dollars to save these failing banks who, again, we talked about on another episode, just ruthlessly fucked the economy over by being insanely greedy and immoral, right? And he totally saved them. And immediately after leaving office, Obama began receiving like multiple $100,000 a pop speakers fees to speak to these same banks. So it's kind of like, you scratch our back. It's not just about getting the money to get elected. It's like, if you take care of us while you're in office, when you leave
we'll take care of
office,
you
like,
when you're out.
yeah, you could do one speaker's event a month at the rates that they're doing, and you'd make over $1 million a year, right? You'd make maybe $2 million a year just giving an hour-long speech once a month. For incredibly rich people who you spent your career taking care of. It is, once you get in the room, seeing yourself taking care of your own wealth becomes a much easier proposition if you're willing to have no morals about it, right?
Yeah. I guess, I mean, like, even Donald Trump, I'm sure, if he ever is not president, will, his brand is forever embossed in the history of being the president of the United States. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
like,
absolutely.
No matter what happens, he will always have been the president of the United States, and can thus, charge a certain amount just to be somewhere.
Yeah, totally.
I guess that's true. Yeah, I just always get a bit funny about that, 'cause, especially with the guys that really pretend, when they do come from nowhere and then suddenly they have, I don't know, because you're only president for 4 years. That's $2 million, before tax, or 4 years, or 8 years, and that's $4 million before tax. That's like. Good investments are good investments, but I knew there was more money coming from somewhere. Okay, so anyway, so Bernie Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was making this speech about these guys who were taking money.
Yeah, and basically,
it's easier to take money than not to.
Yeah, and the whole problem with American politics right now is that the Democrats and Republicans can only disagree on a very small number of issues because they're all taking money from these same people to steer the ship generally in the same direction about the most important things in the country, right?
Right.
So the mainstream Democrats do not want Medicare for all, right? Because health insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies are paying them. They pay for candidates. They lobby and give money to candidates so that doesn't happen, because the private health insurance industry, it extracts $1 trillion like a year from Americans. I think that is the number. It's like and the reason they do that is because they're able to massively inflate prices, right? We've talked many times about healthcare American healthcare on this show, so take a look back through our episodes. I won't get into it here, but that's a good example of a place where we've talked so many times. We come from a country that has single payer healthcare. It works. It's not a fantasy utopia, but we walk around in fear as, we are two people who are not overly rich. We are two people who in America, if we had a medical emergency, we'd be bankrupted. Like you just went out to get a coffee, and if you slipped on the ice and broke your leg in America, you could be facing tens of thousands of dollars in medical bills minimum.
Oh yeah.
But, we walk around with no fear that will happen to us, because it won't.
Yeah.
And so we know that this is not a fantasy. This is our real lives. This has been the case since long before we were born. And yet in America, there's so much resistance to even like the feasibility of this idea. And don't you start to wonder, like, why the fuck are people so weird about this? And the answer is that they're being paid to be weird about it, right? On both parties, on both sides. So right now, the whole reason that Medicare for all has become a mainstream political fight is because of Bernie. Like, there's no other reason. Bernie has been championing Medicare for all for basically his entire political career at the federal level. And it's because he doesn't take money from those companies who want him to be silent. Hillary Clinton said that single-payer healthcare was a fantasy in 2016, right? We've come so far now from that. In just 2 years, Bernie and his visibility and his platform have moved the conversation so far now that there's many candidates who support Medicare for all in the Democratic Party. And so I think that's a great example of the power that he has in the national imagination.
Right. Also, historical asterisks, when Richard says that he and I live in a country where there's free health care, we do at the time of this recording. If you are listening to this in the year 2028 and the wasteland is just gravel and the dust from human bones.
Yeah,
and
Ontario is officially now renamed to Ford Nation, just like fucking Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, exactly. If that's the case, then obviously this podcast is a little bit out of date, but we do still appreciate your support.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you, wasteland dweller, whoever you may be. I hope that your struggles to avoid Immortan Joe continue fruitfully for the rest of your time.
Yeah. And say, wasteland neuromancer, if you are enjoying this podcast, perhaps you would care to visit our Patreon and donate a little bit of money if that's still up and going. We have bonus material that comes out every week, theoretically, if the apocalypse has not claimed both Richard and I or separated us via a giant fissure in Manitoba. We would really appreciate your patronage. But of course, the episodes are free, so go on our website and just, listen to back episodes. We got hours of them.
And if you are listening to this in the present, patreon.com/explain to Jamie if you want to support us, if you like what you're hearing, and if you want to check out our bonus episodes, of which there are quite a few now. They're building up every week, and they've got some cool stuff.
Cool stuff.
Last week we roasted Howard Schultz and his presidential run, and we read a very stupid article about it, and we had a really good time making fun of it.
Well, okay, here, this leads me to another question, Ricky, because Mr. Howard Schultz is an aspiring independent presidential candidate who may like to follow in old Bernie's footsteps and prove himself to be a commander-in-chief one day. Mm-hmm. What makes him so different?
Well, there's a couple of things actually that do make him different. Number one, Howard Schultz doesn't want to run in the Democratic primary and win the Democratic nomination. He wants to run as a third-party independent, right? So Bernie, even though he is an independent, he's running to be the Democratic Party nominee. That's what he did in 2016, and that's what I think he's gearing up to do again now. He's still being coy about officially announcing, but it's pretty much looking like a done deal that he's going to announce that he's going to run.
So Bernie Sanders he's an independent senator.
Yes.
But when the Democratic Party nomination primaries came around last time, he ran as a Democrat.
Yeah, that's right. He ran in the Democratic nomination, and I guess if he had won, he would have become a Democrat. No, you are correct. And actually, we have to talk about this because it's a pretty nutso story about what happened to him. Now, as we know, he lost to Hillary Clinton, but he lost in a way that was really, really kind of dark and messed up, and that caused a lot of ill will in the Democratic Party that still very much exists. So it's really a part of the modern dynamic with Bernie, and you definitely have to understand it to understand where he's at today. So
can I take a guess?
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton invited him to a secret meeting wherein he walked into a room whose walls were lined with the heads of dead white elephants. And she said to him, "I heard you like elephants, so I wanted us to have this meeting in this room." Was it a threat, or did she just misinterpret a gesture, or did she learn this lesson before?
That's right. Hillary Clinton
Am I correct?
Hillary Clinton led Bernie Sanders into a room with a bunch of dead socialized healthcare programs mounted on the wall, and she was like, "I hear you like single payer healthcare, so here's a bunch of medical bills." Yeah, you are correct. No, you're not correct. You're totally wrong. You're nowhere even close to correct. Okay, so Democratic primaries are actually, and specifically the Democratic Party and the Republican Party have like different structures for their primary. We're not going to talk about the Republicans today, mostly because I didn't really research it in detail, so I'm not going to talk about it. But the Democratic primary, it kind of works the same way that like the Electoral College works, which, as you know, is a confusing system that weights different states with a different like number of votes for who gets the president, right? So you have to win the state to get those Electoral College votes, and then whoever gets the most Electoral College votes wins the presidency. It's kind of like that, where but it's a slightly more rational system where basically every state has a certain number of delegates, okay? And I think they all have different numbers, but let's just say, for example, you'd have 100 delegates in a state. What that means is those are like designated Democratic Party people who are going to pick who the nominee is on behalf of that state. So if we're in California, there's 100 California Democratic Party people, and they will all vote on who California thinks should be the nominee. And they do that in every state, and then the person who gets the most delegates across the country theoretically becomes the nominee. However, you may have noticed that's not actually that democratic, right? It's like, well, who are the 100 people who get picked or whatever, right? So the way that was originally back in like the 19th century, it was sort of undemocratic. It was just left up to a small number of prominent Democrats or whatever in the state. But now, they realized in the mid-20th century, you know what, this is kind of like doesn't give a lot of choice to the actual people. So now Democratic Party voters, you can like register to vote. If you're a party Democrat, like a registered Democratic member, any person can vote in the primary. And then also you can, if you're an independent, you can vote in the Democratic primary, but you can only vote in one party's primary. If you vote in the Democratic Party primary, you can't also vote in the Republican Party primary. And then what happens is everybody votes who's eligible, all those Democrats, and then the delegates basically vote how their state votes, right? So if it's like 55% Bernie, 45% Hillary in California, and there's those 100 delegates, then they'll say 55 of them have gone for Bernie and 45 have gone for Hillary. Okay, does that make sense?
I'm not gonna lie to you, Rick. The same thing just happened to me as what happened to me in grade 8 social class, where I was just like, okay, I'm too far behind now. Just nod, smile, and we'll get them on the midterm.
Well, think of it like this. It's like, you know that Rick and Morty where they're like, it's like slavery with extra steps. It's like democracy with extra steps. It's like this weird evolution in democracy where for some reason, it's like you could just say, okay, the vote went. It's like the delegates are like the primary points available in the state. So basically it's just the people who are Democrats in the state vote for who they want to be the nominee, and then they basically win the points available based on the percentages they get, right? And then they have to add up those points across all 50 states. Right?
I see. Okay.
Does that make more sense?
Yeah. They vote on it.
Right. So, and those are called delegates, right? Those are like the pledged delegates. So basically when primary season comes around, they go like state by state. Sometimes there's a couple states who all vote on the same day. The first one is infamously Iowa, which is why everyone always gets obsessed with Iowa like once every 4 years, right when the primaries start to happen, because Iowa's the first one. So it makes a big difference. Like, it creates the momentum. It kind of creates the storylines. And so you try to go around getting more delegates in every state. Finally, the person with the majority, when you get a majority of the delegates in the country available, you become the nominee. But there's a huge catch. And the huge catch is, in addition to just the ones, like all the points that you can win from winning states, there used to just
you have to win an obstacle course.
Like essentially,
Bernie
except
being
the obstacle
an 85-year-old man.
Bernie versus. Can you imagine Bernie versus Hillary in an obstacle course? Like, yikes!
Oh boy, yeah, kill me. That'd be a boring hour and a half of TV.
Yeah, absolutely. No, the catch was this system was too democratic, and what that means is that a few times in the mid 20th century, the primary process created a nominee who the Democratic Party staff didn't really like, who they thought wasn't very electable or was very outside of their personal networks, and those people often got their butts handed to them. And so they made a big change in the 80s where in addition to, okay, you can win it's like all these points are available by winning. Every state will vote, and that's all the points that are available. Whoever wins the most points from states voting wins the nomination. They also just made a bunch of people who work for the Democratic Party also count. So it's like, and at one point there was almost like 20% of the votes were just people in the Democratic Party who got to pick what their vote was. And those were called super delegates, right? So the normal points are called delegates. And so it's like, okay, sure, so theoretically a situation could come about where you could win a majority of the votes in the states, but then if all the people working for the Democratic Party who also got to vote liked the second place person, they could just vote that person into the nomination. That's what they wanted, right? So what happened with Hillary and Bernie is that there was a lot of rumors during the campaign that all of the superdelegates, all of the people who work for the Democratic Party, really wanted Hillary to win and really didn't want Hillary to win. And these didn't want Bernie to win and wanted Hillary to win.
Right.
And these superdelegates are a huge part of the primary process because there were several hundred of them, and there are many very high-level Democrat party staff members, like all the way through the ranks, and they talk publicly about what candidate they want to win, often before the actual primary starts, right? So it's like the momentum is a big deal in these kinds of things. And so if you're all of these delegates and you're already saying like, oh, we're all going to pledge to Hillary, so she automatically has a 200-point lead over Bernie, that does a lot for momentum, right? It frames the story the entire way through, where it's like, because Bernie was making huge gains, he was winning all these unexpected states, but every single time the story had to be, but Hillary probably still has a lead because of the superdelegates, right? It's hard to get true momentum going.
Right. And this is, does memory serve, this isn't something that's in the Republican Party, right?
No, that's right. Republican Party doesn't have this exact system. This is unique to the Democratic Party.
Right.
And it gets even more fucked up. What came out
that's kind of fucked up, isn't it?
That's already pretty fucked up, but it gets more fucked up.
That's kind of a bad guy mechanism to have in your democratic system, you know?
Well, that's the argument. The argument is that that system massively favors the status quo, which, as we've discussed, is already kind of in the pocket of pharmaceutical companies, health insurance companies, i.e., the financial interests that really did not want Bernie to win were the same interests that are funding a lot of these candidates, and they want this other candidate to win. Here's a direct mechanism where you can influence the process, not just once you're in the legislature and you're making the laws, like who gets to even be on the ballot, which, as we talked about with Lana Cuthbertson, who gets to be on the ballot is a big part of politics and representation in politics, right?
Right. Oh, man.
But guess what? It gets even more fucked up because it came out right at so after, do you remember, I'm sure this phrase has almost lost all meaning at this point, but let's go back to 2016 and remember when Russia hacked the emails of the Democratic Party and released them, which now, we see about this every day, but it's about the investigation, it's about blah, blah, blah. So we've kind of lost touch with what actually happened. So what happened was these emails were dropped out into the world just a couple weeks before the election. They had been hacked out of the Democratic Party servers and released. And they said not only did the Democrats like Hillary Clinton better, Hillary Clinton was actually essentially bankrolling the entire Democratic Party of America at that point, because the Democratic Party had been super, super in debt after the Obama campaign, and that debt had not been paid back. They did not have the money anymore to run the party. So Hillary Clinton cut a formal deal on paper with the Democratic Party well before the primaries were done that she would front the entire budget for the Democratic Party in exchange for getting control over how the money was being spent. Now, normally, a presidential candidate does kind of get control of the whole Democratic Party's budget after they get the nomination. That's normal. But she got it while she was still running against Bernie. So now it's like you're a superdelegate in the Democratic Party. You're a person who works for the party who gets to pick. You get a vote, an undemocratic vote, untempered by any other person's choices about who's going to run the party. And one of the candidates is paying your fucking salary, literally, out of her pocket.
It's a bit of an ironic name for a party, isn't it?
It's hilarious. I mean, it's like you can't make it up. But this literally happened. This is a matter of the public record. And this is a totally overlooked fact in kind of the mainstream narrative. Like this very dark dealing was going on. So people will often say that Bernie is not electable because he couldn't beat Hillary Clinton in the primary. But that was a super, super stacked against him race. And you can't forget that. That's a big part of what's going on right now.
Wow, I had no idea. So he's back for some more punishment.
Yeah, well, I mean,
the primaries. So yeah, this is a nice transition. The primaries are happening now. I don't know, or people are running now.
People are gearing up. People are announcing now. It's going to happen in 2019. It's going to be in a couple months. The primaries are gearing up, which is part of why this is a good topic. Let's say too, like, Trump has been a dark time. Who has stepped up to lead the Democratic Party? Hillary Clinton fucking evaporated, right? Like, where has she gone? Where is she? Meanwhile, Bernie Sanders has been out there, opposing the immigration ban. He's been standing for Medicare for all. He's been fighting for a Green New Deal, which is now legislation that's being tabled by the new Congress, which we will definitely talk about soon on an episode. He even found time. He saved a woman from being hit by a car in the last couple of years. He has been working his butt off for the American people. So, and he consistently polls as the most popular politician in America. Yeah. And he's incredibly popular with people who aren't affiliated with either party, independents. So I think the Democratic Party is going to have a serious identity crisis over. It's going to be the same thing again. They're going to find the party brass are going to find somebody who they want to run against them who's acceptable to the fundraising base of the party, right? That's what their whole thing is going to be. But I think that person will probably have a hard time beating Donald Trump. And I should say in 2018 in August, so like just a couple months ago, 7 months ago, they changed the rules so that there's way fewer superdelegates now, and they're not allowed to vote until later in the process. So they can't exert that same control. They changed those rules. I was going to
say, there's a lot of strict regulation on like corporation CEOs and what they can and can't say in the public atmosphere, right? Because if they say a certain thing and drive the stock price up or drive the stock price down, that's fraud, right? People are losing money. So I don't understand how we can be so aware of like a good rule like that and not aware of like a clear misuse of the exact same thing, the exact same social reaction, someone going, this guy who's running isn't a good idea. We're going to vote for her, just so you know, and disregard the fact that our opinions matter a lot.
Well, the Democratic Party created that exact scenario, because they found themselves once or twice in situations where the public liked a candidate that I guess the staff found sort of unelectable or very difficult to work with or to make appealing to people. I don't think that's a great explanation. I don't think it's like moral or justified, but that is the choice they made. They made the choice to centralize a lot of the control. But now they've let go of a lot of that control, I think precisely because the backlash from people who had supported Bernie was so enormous once it had got out that Hillary had done this deal. And that those emails, again, they were leaked right before the election. And I think they alienated a lot of people from voting for Hillary Clinton. Part of the reason there's so much bad blood and there's still a huge contingent of Democratic supporters who hate Bernie is because they think he selfishly, prevented people from voting for Hillary because and there's kind of accusations of misogyny that go with that too. Like people who liked Bernie were so misogynist that they wouldn't vote for Hillary Clinton. I think that's kind of a fantasy because Bernie explicitly did endorse Hillary Clinton, told everyone who supported him to vote for Hillary Clinton. I just think that people thought that was like gross backroom dealing, and at the end of the day, they couldn't bring themselves to do it. If you're the kind of voter who wants a change, who doesn't want these big financial lobbying interests to be controlling things, and then you see suddenly Hillary Clinton's engaging in all this kind of stuff, I could see how you'd make the decision that she wouldn't be that different from a Donald Trump. I think it was not a fully correct decision, but who knows where it'll end up,
Right. Interesting. Oh, man. So this year, or next in 2020, Richard, will you be feeling the burn?
I am already feeling the burn, mostly because we live in hell, and hell is full of fire. I think he'd be a great candidate. I do think he'd be a good candidate. I think it would be a huge moment for America if he got the nomination.
Would he be the oldest president ever?
I actually don't know. He's 79 now. He's a similar age to Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, so he's not vastly younger or older than they are. Let me Google that. And
he's 60 years younger than Ruth Bader Ginsburg, right?
Yeah, that's right. She's I think she was born in the same year as George Washington. Yes, he would be the oldest president elected, I believe, because he's. Because Ronald Reagan was the oldest president at 73. Bernie Sanders' age. And Bernie is, he's 77. Yeah.
Right.
So he's old, but
he's old, man.
But he's kind of the choice.
One more in him.
He's definitely. I don't think he has many more than one more in him.
Right.
I mean, the thing is, too, like, there's nobody who hits at his level right now. I think Ocasio-Cortez will develop into a candidate who will, if she lives long enough and she doesn't get fucking murdered by some crazy right-wing dude. Like I think she could easily be rocking a presidential run in 2024. She's actually not old enough to do it this time. You have to be 35 to run for president, and she's, I believe, still 29.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's tough. You got to time it because you wanna run in a year that you think you can win.
Absolutely.
But also, like, I don't know, if I was 35, and thinking about being president, I don't know that I would run at 35. I might wait till I was 40. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the youngest is Kennedy, and he was just in his early 40s.
Right. Yeah. Interesting.
Sweet.
Democratic Party, the newlywed and the nearly dead, right?
Wow, you should be their campaign slogan guy for next year.
I keep sending stuff in, but they don't get back to me.
I wonder why. That's so weird.
Yeah, it is so weird. But I keep getting emails back from some Russian guy. So
oh, cool.
I think they're going to the right place.
They're so hot right now. Like we should we should just defect. We should become like Russian operatives.
Okay. And just like that, our podcast got taken off of SoundCloud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Cesis.
I think that's all I need to know about Bernie Sanders, at least for today. If you guys like this topic, if you like this episode, please share it. That is the number one thing you can do for us. Tell your friends, whether by your mouth or via your keyboard and screen. We are eternally grateful to all of you that support us and write us and ask for suggestions on topics and just let us know that you're not just some Ukrainian sex robot on Twitter that's hired to retweet us.
Although they do love our episode about neoliberalism, so
Holy cow, man!
Yeah, the discourse is high among Ukrainian sex robots. And again, one more time, if you do want to support the show, if you like what you hear, you can chip us a couple bucks a month on Patreon. Patreon.com/explainittojamie is where you'll find us. There you can get bonus content, including bonus episodes every week. And your support makes a huge difference to us. It really, really does matter. So thank you very much to those who support us already.
Yeah, we love you guys. And until next time, I'm Jamie.
I'm Richard.
This has been Explain It to Jamie. Bye.